She screamed at my gate like she owned my bloodline, waving a $3,000 fine as if it were a sheriff's badge. I was still holding my morning coffee, staring at the land my grandfather bought in 1952, wondering how telling someone no could suddenly make me the villain. Within an hour, my cameras were rolling, my rifle hung in plain sight on the barn wall, and the sheriff was on his way because this wasn't just a neighborly spat. This was war. My name is Wes Carter, and I live on a ranch outside Canyon Road, Texas. My family's been here 3 generations, cattle fences and oak trees older than the subdivision that sprouted up around us. I've never signed into their HOA, never paid a dime to their board, and never asked for their community standards. But when Malene Pierce moved in 8 months ago, wearing that crimson blazer and clutching her clipboard like a sword, she decided my ranch was her next conquest. That morning, she marched straight to my front gate with 2 board members trailing like nervous schoolboys. Her nameplate gleamed HOA Compliance Chair. Her tone was sharp, that bureaucratic pitch people use when they think the rules bend in their favor. "Mr. Carter," she barked, "I require immediate access to inspect your property for compliance." I sipped from my thermos, leaned on the porch rail, and answered like my father would have. "Ma'am, you're welcome to look from the county road, but you're not stepping foot past those survey stakes without proper documentation and legal authority." Her face turned red to match her blazer. She shoved a letter through the bars, $3,000 for unauthorized agricultural land use and failure to maintain aesthetic standards. No photos, no citations, no proof. Just a number typed in bold ink as if her signature alone could make it real. I called the sheriff. Mark Lewis, a tall, steady man who'd seen his fair share of HOA nonsense, pulled up in his cruiser minutes later. He studied her paperwork, flipped a page, and said, "Calm. As you please. Ma'am, this doesn't hold water. No proper board signatures, no covenant section cited, nothing enforceable. And you cannot enter private land without court order or consent." Her confidence cracked like glass. She fumbled with her tape measure, pretending to measure my fence posts, muttering about standards. But the sheriff's radio squawked just then, reports of survey markers being tampered with at my location. His eyes sharpened. "Ma'am, have you or your team disturbed any markers today?" She froze. Her lackeys stepped back. And in that tense silence, I realized the real fight was only just beginning. 3 days later, I was in the courthouse digging through deed books older than Malene herself. My grandfather's purchase in 1952 spelled it plain 240 acres with permanent county easement for the road, no mention of any homeowner association. My rights predated their entire existence. As I flipped those brittle pages, I uncovered more. The HOA's incorporation papers from '95 didn't match county records, missing easements, altered surveys. Either sloppy or deliberate, it gave them authority they never had. Then I dug into her past. Public records showed she'd been fired in Dallas in 2019 for the same damn thing: aggressive citations, unauthorized fines, procedural overreach. She hadn't moved to our county for fresh air. She'd moved here to bury her record. I thought about hiring a lawyer, but instead I built my own evidence folder. Photos, deeds, survey maps, every scrap stamped by the county clerk. My wife used to say genealogy research would come in handy one day. I just never thought it'd be to keep our ranch from a power-drunk neighbor. That's when Rebecca Shaw appeared. Mid-40s, sharp-eyed CPA from down the road. She slid me a folder fat with invoices and bank statements. Malene's been signing off on expenditures beyond her authority. Tens of thousands, no board approval. And someone on the board is quietly logging it. Turns out, I wasn't the only one being targeted. Still, the battle turned darker. One night, my cameras caught a figure in red creeping with a flashlight, pulling out the brand-new GPS stakes my surveyor had planted that afternoon. High-definition, time-stamped, undeniable. Sheriff Lewis looked at the footage and said, "That's criminal evidence tampering Wes." The next morning, I woke to find a heavy chain stretched across my access road, padlocked with a sign reading, "Emergency Safety Closure by Order of HOA." That chain stopped cattle feed trucks dead in their tracks. 2,000 pounds of grain spoiled $340 a day in losses, plus the stress of 40. Head of cattle bellowing for feed. My vet confirmed it disrupted schedules, caused digestive issues, weight loss, long-term financial damage. I'll admit, that's when I broke. Sitting at my kitchen table, calculator in one hand, fine notice in the other, I asked myself if it was worth it. Maybe I was stubborn. Maybe I should just pay the damn fine, sell part of the land, avoid more trouble. For the first time, I wondered if I was the fool. But then came the call from the county planner. 8 years' worth of permits filed by the HOA for landscaping, mailboxes, drainage, every single one built on my property. Every single one signed without my consent. Fraud, clear as day. They weren't just harassing me. They were stealing from me, from the county, from everyone. That snapped me back upright. I wasn't crazy. I was the only one willing to fight. By the time the emergency board meeting was called, I had allies. Rebecca with her accounting folder. Tom Wilson with his secret file of altered minutes and forged signatures. Sheriff Lewis with evidence of tampering and livestock interference. And me with 70 years of deed history and a professional survey that proved the HOA's decorative entrance sat on 1.2 acres of my family's ranch. The community center was thick with tension. Residents divided into camps, whispers buzzing like flies. Malene strutted in still in that red blazer, though her eyes betrayed exhaustion. She declared every action had been within standards and consistent with community procedures. The mediator raised an eyebrow and asked for her current credentials. She produced expired Dallas certifications from 2018. Nothing valid, nothing related to HOA management. Tom stood pale but firm and opened his folder. Receipts for $47,000 in unapproved spending. Monthly fines with no documentation. Forged board votes. One by one, the evidence piled up until the weight of it crushed her composure. "I don't accept this vote," she shouted when the board finally moved to suspend her. "You people don't understand community management. I have the experience none of you possess." Her chair toppled backward as she rose frantic, her voice breaking. But it didn't matter anymore. The sheriff had her confession on record. The mediator had documents from 3 different sources showing fraud, abuse, and unauthorized expenditures. The board voted. She was removed as compliance chair. When I walked out into the night, I felt the cool air hit my face like freedom. The ranch was still mine. The fine was void. The HOA now owed me restitution over $100,000 in damages, back pay, and legal costs. And Malene Pierce, the woman who thought she could bully a rancher into submission, was finished. The last I saw of her that night, she stood alone in the parking lot, clutching her empty briefcase like a shield with no weight. All the power she'd wielded gone in an instant, exposed for what it was: bluster and fraud. You can stand up to bullies, even the ones hiding behind clipboards and bylaws. All it takes is proof, persistence, and the courage not to back down.